Imagine waking up every morning to the roar of tools, feeling stone dust seep into your lungs before the sun even rises. There is no office, no comfortable seat, only the cracked rock shattered by the fire you yourself lit to extract marble. Picture the sweat clinging to your skin as you inhale poisonous fumes that steal your breath and drag you one step closer to the grave. Think of the Vestals, girls chosen to guard a sacred flame for 30 years, knowing that a single mistake meant stoning or being buried alive. Or the imperial banquet tasters, wine testers who drank to protect the emperor, aware that a poisoned sip was the quietest way to die. These souls lived at the mercy of hunger and the whims of their masters, facing punishments so merciless that today we can only imagine them with horror. Throughout this video, we will explore 13 professions in which the line between life and death was as thin as a mason's spatula. Stay with me until the end and discover accounts so raw they will feel torn from a historical nightmare. If this journey into the past shocks you, give it a like and subscribe so you won't miss history's darkest secrets. Miners, death underground. Imagine descending into the shadows, with nothing but the faint flicker of an oil lamp against the damp rock. Each hammer blow released clouds of dust and sulfurous vapors that could choke you within minutes. 30 meters deep, the heat rose with every step, the air turned unbreathable, and you could feel your pulse throb in your throat. The workers were slaves, yes, but also free men driven by debt or necessity. They struck walls that had just been scorched with intense fire, then doused with icy water. The thermal shock cracked the stone, but it also shattered their lungs. Pliny the Elder wrote how deadly gases rose like serpents of smoke to strangle those who dug without pause. With no ventilation or drainage, every gallery became a trap. Water seeped in, flooding passages and forcing miners to carve narrower tunnels where cave-ins were common. Theodorus of Sicily described miners as continuously consumed by disease and death. Could you endure the extreme exhaustion, the oppressive darkness, and the knowledge that a single collapse, or a single breath of gas, could bury you forever? Intimate companions, the extreme risk of birth control. In torchlit alleys, women and enslaved girls who offered intimacy in exchange for a coin often paid with their lives. Without reliable methods, every pregnancy carried massive hemorrhage risks and infectious complications, raising maternal mortality above 30%. To avoid a lethal birth, healers and traders recommended abortive potions, mixtures of silphium resin, now extinct, wild tarragon decoctions, and castor oil so concentrated it caused unbearable cramps and ruptured blood vessels. Doses were guessed at, often with fatal results, internal bleeding and organ failure within hours. When the potion failed, the last resort was physical violence, shoves from low walls or direct blows to the womb, considered less dangerous than childbirth. Open wounds inevitably became infected, and many never set foot outside those shadowy courtyards again. Pliny the Elder warned that, the thin line between cure and grave was as sharp as a scalpel's blade, and Juvenal wrote of how some women vanished without morning at dawn. Could you live knowing that every act of survival gambled with your own existence? Vestal virgins, honor with a price of blood. Imagine being chosen at just 8 years old to guard a flame symbolizing Rome's fortune, knowing that if you failed even once, your life would be worth no more than an extinguished spark. For 30 years, 10 of training, 10 of service, and 10 of teaching, these young women lived under the eyes of the entire city, enjoying unique privileges. They wore purple-trimmed tunics, had their own box at the circus, could pardon the condemned, and controlled their own wealth. But that honor was an oath of steel. If the fire went out by accident, public scourging awaited. If suspected of breaking their vow of chastity, an official midwife inspected every detail to certify dishonor. The punishment could be stoning in the temple square or decapitation, followed by live burial, a sealed tomb where silence became eternal condemnation. Sources record only about 20 Vestals executed, but every family feared becoming part of that statistic. Juvenal, in his satires, described how the city held its breath whenever one of them crossed the temple. The collective murmur measured the thin line between reverence and horror. Can you imagine keeping an oath that grants you power and respect, but condemns you to a gruesome death if you falter even once? Latrine cleaners, face to face with stench and rot. Imagine having to enter dim galleries every dawn, where the waste of hundreds of people collected in bottomless pits. There, among the echo of your steps, the heavy air filled with corrosive gases, hydrogen sulfide and methane, that could ignite without warning, turning the job into an explosive nightmare. Public latrines, foul duty without respite. Public latrines, designed to serve dozens at the same time, lacked privacy and efficient drainage. Cleaners used sticks and baskets to scrape away sediments, then dipped a communal sponge into buckets of stagnant water to wipe themselves. Each pass impregnated their hands and clothes with a stench that not even the most expensive aromatic oils could mask. Sometimes a hungry rat emerged from the sewers and bit an unsuspecting worker, other times, sparks ignited sudden flames from the seat, a reminder that danger was always present. It is believed that these guardians of the sewers were low-ranking slaves or disgraced citizens, forced to endure endless days without reprieve. Think of every breath. Could you endure a stench so vile it seemed to cling to your skin and haunt you even in your dreams? Sailors and scurvy, the plague of the seas. On deck, the midday sun strikes mercilessly as salt sticks to your skin and the waves shake the mast. Your only food consists of cured meat and dried legumes, completely lacking vitamin C. After just a few weeks, your gums begin to bleed, sharp pain seize your joints, and small purplish spots erupt on your skin. Each breath becomes a torment, and after months, fatigue drags you into a stupor bordering on unconsciousness. Pliny the Elder described outbreaks of scurvy among Roman crews, though they attributed the illness to imbalanced humors. He was the one who tested wild sorrel, rich in vitamin C, and temporarily relieved some soldiers, but the remedy was lost to time. For centuries, ships continued bargaining with death, until the Renaissance, when a Scottish physician discovered the power of citrus fruits and changed the course of navigation. Each companion you lost reminded you of your own body's fragility. Beneath the ship's canvas, the dead were cast into the sea without ceremony, turning the deck into a landscape of silence and despair. Could you endure weeks without a single fresh fruit, watching those who shared your fate fall around you? Banquet tasters, a deadly sip. Imagine sitting at the emperor's table, surrounded by exquisite dishes and goblets brimming with sparkling wine. Your job is to taste every plate and drink before him, ensuring no poison reaches his lips. Each sip may save a life, or end yours instantly. The pregators, as these tasters were known, held a place of honor in the imperial retinue. They received the choicest leftovers from the kitchens and the best part of the rations, but they knew a single mistake doomed them. Poisoning was a common tool in power struggles, subtle herbs dissolved in wine, lethal minerals mixed into sauces, or powders of saxifrage that paralyzed the heart. There was no safe dose nor infallible recipe. Juvenal recounts how a pregator of Mark Antony would break into cold sweats each time he raised a cup, knowing the next sip could contain a deadly elixir brewed by enemy hands. Although the emperor rewarded generously those who saved his life, he could just as easily turn his back on one who failed. They worked under the constant tension of a silent tribunal. A sip rejected, a frown, was enough to pass judgment. And if death came, no one shed tears. The body disappeared without rites, replaced by another volunteer for the next battle of power. Could you stay calm before a poisoned goblet, knowing your skill dictated not only your fate but that of the most powerful man in Rome? The nomenclator, prodigious memory in service of the elite. Imagine a hall filled with togas and purple robes, where every new face could become a political misstep. There, a nomenclator stood at your side, whispering names and titles with the precision of a living oracle. His voice was a constant thread that held in your mind senators, priests, and wealthy merchants. This is Marcus Junius Brutus, that one Lucius Caecilius Balbus. Without him, forgetting a name could cost you an alliance, a favor, or even your reputation. During election campaigns, his role was even more vital. They walked together through squares and vestibules, and each time a citizen raised his hand, the nomenclator murmured his identity in your ear, enabling personalized promises. Cicero praised their memory as a living archive capable of recalling nicknames, kinships, and loyalties. But such extreme precision demanded nights of study on entire families and days spent in endless ceremonies. Forgetting even one name meant facing the mocking whispers of the crowd or the disdain of a powerful colleague. Could you retain in your mind the name and story of every person you met, knowing that a single slip could trigger your social downfall? Galley rowers, muscle without respite. Imagine reporting at dawn to the deck of a trireme, where 200 voices chant a single command, row. You had no choice of breeze or ergonomic or at a gym. You were placed at the waterline on a narrow wooden bench, your torso bent, your hands calloused. Sun and salt erased your sweat instantly, and each stroke was pure endurance, no rest, no respite, no compassion. These men, mostly free-hired workers or impoverished citizens, had accepted a modest wage in exchange for endless days of rowing. The filth and bile that accumulated in the galley attracted flies and disease, skin cracked, shoulders split into sores, and the panic of a naval battle order turned the deck into a hell of creaking timbers and raging waves. In battle, the culminating moment was the clash of prows. While you adjusted your body to plunge your oar into the water with a single thrust, the thunder of swords and battle cries resounded among the taut rigging. A mistake in your rhythm could cause the ship to capsize or leave you exposed to the enemy. The punishment for slowing down was the officer's whip, 10 lashes across your back until your muscles trembled, a reminder that you did not own your own body. When the wind died down, relief never came. Martial discipline only allowed rotation to clean the deck or load damp grain that clumped and attracted rats. The few breaks were consumed in setting broken bones or treating infected calluses. Your fallen companions, exhausted or sick, were cast into the sea without funeral, an icy silence that reminded you of the fragility of your own life. Could you keep the rhythm of your oars, day after day, feeling pain carved into every muscle and knowing that the slightest mistake could doom not only your ship, but your very existence? Collectors of the ammonia tax, the liquid gold of the laundries. Imagine beginning your day gathering the fluid that dripped into the cisterns of public latrines, aware that every drop was worth more than your daily wage. From Nero to Vespasian, the Vectigal Urini taxed the city's urine, and you were responsible for collecting it in rudimentary skins to then sell it to laundries and tanneries. Stored in barrels under the sun, urine decomposed, releasing ammonia, a natural detergent so effective that it whitened tunics and softened animal hides. But that same ammonia corroded your skin and airways. Your hands, wrapped in rags, blistered, your lungs, inhaling the alkaline vapors, inflamed day after day. And the smells, a mixture of putrefaction and homemade lye that clung to your throat and haunted you even in sleep. Legend has it that Vespasian himself placed a coin next to your load of urine and asked his son Titus whether it smelled bad. When Titus denied it, Vespasian replied, "Pecunia non olet," money does not stink, consecrating your trade as indispensable yet despised. Each afternoon, as you delivered full barrels, you saw your earnings pass hands without praise or recognition. You were the backbone of an entire industry, invisible behind the stench. Could you carry the weight of a barrel of liquid gold, knowing that your livelihood depended on enduring unbearable stench and the corrosive punishment of ammonia on your body? Armpit depilators, enduring the summer stench. Imagine arriving at the atrium of a Roman domus in the height of July, with temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius and sweat pouring relentlessly. Your task began by tying a bundle of underarm hair with linen strips soaked in sticky resin. There was no perfumed wax, only a homemade mixture of hot pitch and rancid oil, clinging brutally to every strand. With a sharp tug, you tore out clumps of hair while the hot air burned the freshly exposed skin. Each session lasted for hours, shoulders hunched to reach the armpit fold, back stiffened by heat and humidity. The skin turned red and inflamed, a perfect breeding ground for infection. Many clients developed fistulas from constant rubbing and sweat, forcing the depilator to double as a healer, treating oozing wounds. The philosopher Cicero criticized the negligence of anyone who failed to keep that area free of weeds, and Ovid described the hairless armpit as a mark of cleanliness and vanity. For you, however, each day was an exercise in endurance, suffering strong odors, hands crippled by blisters, and the demanding gaze of the nobility. At dusk, your tools, rudimentary tweezers and bronze spatulas, were washed in ash water, your body dusted with starch powder to dry out wounds, and your mind forced to prepare for repeating the torment at dawn. Could you dedicate your life to ripping out pain with your own hands, feeling each day how sweat mixed with the fire of resin on your skin? Slave traders, the ruthless human traffic. Imagine following at the vanguard of a triumphant legion, advancing along dirt roads with the sun scorching your back, while rounding up men, women, and children defeated in battle. Your trade was to subdue them, chain them, and move them to markets where they were sold like beasts of burden or laborers. Each day meant forced marches of dozens of kilometers, iron shackles biting ankles and wrists, hunger and thirst gnawed at weakened bodies, and disease spread in the cramped wooden wagons that carried them. Rebels who tried to escape were executed without mercy, and looters prowled, seizing the chaos to rob your merchandise or strip you of life and profit. In Rome, slaves formed the backbone of the economy. They worked in mines, patrician households, workshops, and ships. You, the trader, set the price of every life by strength, age, and skills. A weathered farmhand was worth less than a young artisan, and yet all feared your whip. Buyers examined each wrist, each tooth, with clinical eyes, eager for utility but always ready to discard what they deemed defective. Morality does not exist in your business. Blood, sweat, and death are translated into bronze coins. In Rome, the law tolerates human trade, cruelty is law, and the suffering of others is profit. Could you rest knowing that your livelihood comes from locking another human being in a traveling cage and selling their freedom to the highest bidder? Ornithisses, artisans of extreme pigment. Imagine stepping into the perfumed chamber of a patrician lady, where luxury and vanity intertwine. There, the ornithis, an expert in appearance, had to create dark, gleaming reflections from ingredients as unusual as they were lethal. In a clay amphora, she mixed squid ink with dried leeches, whose coagulated fluids gave body to the pigment. Over the heat of a bronze stove, the brew bubbled, releasing a stench of rotting seas that clung to her clothes and her breath. With rudimentary brushes, she applied the paste to each strand, pressing carefully to avoid clumps. When the dye reached a deep black hue, the client displayed hair so dense it seemed to absorb the daylight. If any material was left over, the ornithis scraped it off with bronze tools, risking cuts and rashes. And if baldness struck harshly, she wove wigs from real hair, gathered from young enslaved women, their locks curled with cedar oil and resin. Each session could last hours, the scalp turned red and inflamed, ripe for infection, while the ornithis' hands blistered and split. The salty, organic stench clung to her skin, a reminder that her art was built on decay. Could you dedicate your life to transforming strands into shining crowns, knowing that leech pulp and ink would corrode your body and mind with every brushstroke? Dentists, torture without anesthesia. Imagine opening the door to an improvised clinic in a patrician household and finding only a wooden stool, an oil lamp, and a chest filled with bronze instruments, hooks, tiny chisels, and red-hot pokers. There is no anesthesia, no painkillers. Your work begins with the patient reclining, teeth rotted from banquets and vomitoriums, their sobs muffled with every touch of your tools. First, you examine the dry mouth, remove food remnants stuck in the fissures, and decide to extract the infected molar. You strap the jaw with leather bands, place a hook beneath the root, and pull hard. The crack of bone is so sharp that the entire hull falls silent. Blood gushes endlessly, and you cauterize the gum with a glowing iron to seal the wound. The patient screams, but your work continues. You rinse the cavity with sour wine and soak a linen gauze in resin to shield it from infection. Complications were constant, abscesses that worsened after extraction, gangrene that required gum grafts from palate and bone, and chronic pain that lingered for days. Without sterilization, the instruments carried invisible bacilli that turned every procedure into a dangerous gamble. Each day, you tend to nobles willing to pay any price to rid themselves of a toothache, yet many return with distorted bites or fractured jaws. At nightfall, you wash the instruments in water and vinegar, and prepare ointments of opium and myrrh for those who can afford them. Could you hold another's blood in your hands, knowing that a single mistake could lead to death by infection, or to irreversible disfigurement? Today we have walked through the shadows of ancient Rome, where work was not a right but a sentence, from suffocated miners and martyred vestals to dentists forged in the fire of cruelty. These trades remind us how far we have come, and how much we must be grateful for in our time. Which of these professions struck you the most, and why? Leave it in the comments. Your opinion could inspire our next journey into the past. If this journey unearthed fascination and awe within you, give it a like to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss new stories that dig up the truth behind forgotten empires. See you in the next video.